Okay.
Okay, everybody, I see we have about 34, 35 people here, so which is pretty good on a Monday when we probably needed to announce it again. And so I appreciate that you're all here. We're very fortunate to have Daniel Soeffing with us. He's a DEA agent out of Philadelphia right now, so don't hold that against him if you're not from Philly. He previously started with the DEA in what, 2005?
2005. Yep.
Yeah, with in Los Angeles, working on narco-terrorism and on cartels. He moved to Philadelphia in 2009, has been investigating medical professionals and business professionals and their involvement in drug trafficking. He was formerly in the military, and are you still in the reserves and working as a judge advocate in the reserves? Dan was, before he went to the DEA, was a prosecutor, state prosecutor, and so he has a background in law as well. So some of you may be out there who joined us last week when we had talks with lawyers and wondering, what can I do with a law degree? Well, Dan's going to be able to tell you another option that you may have available. So without further ado, Dan, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'll just kind of, if anybody wants to ask a question, please go to the Q&A box and ask your question there, and we will get to it, so just be patient, and we'll go from there.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me here. This is really awesome. This is like the greatest thing I've seen in a long time, so I appreciate people listening to me and hearing what I had to say. So what I want to do is I want to just take 5 minutes. I'll speak for 5 minutes. I want to tell you what DEA is. And then I want to tell you what a special agent is not. And we'll do process of elimination, and that might actually answer more questions than you would think. So the DEA, it's actually the Drug Enforcement Administration. No matter where you go or whoever you're talking to, they'll always say the Drug Enforcement Agency. And that's a very important word, administration, because most drugs, believe it or not, are actually legal. And you'll be talking to other people from other agencies, and they'll tell you, well, I'm from Homeland Security, or I'm from Secret Service, or I'm from FBI. And they'll say, well, we're the premier law enforcement agency in the world. And that's great, and that's wonderful. But I'll tell you tonight what DEA is not. DEA is not a law enforcement agency. It's a regulatory administration. And in being in DEA, you have law enforcement capabilities. So DEA is not so much a federal agency. They used to have that. It was called the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, Federal Bureau of Narcotics. And it didn't work. And the reason it didn't work was because narcotics or drugs are really international. Every crime you see involving drugs is really an international crime. And they realized that you couldn't just do it on a national scale or a state scale. You had to do it as an international agency. So DEA is an administration. It's a regulatory administration, and it has law enforcement capabilities all around the world. And in saying that, I can tell you that DEA is in more countries around the world than any other federal law enforcement agency. So what am I not? I'm not a federal police officer. That means that I don't enforce federal laws of all types. If somebody went out today and robbed a bank, I couldn't arrest them. If somebody went out today and kidnapped someone and brought them across state lines, I couldn't arrest them. There's certain things I just can't do. However, if somebody sold a little bit of marijuana, or if somebody sold a pill that's normally prescribed legally, but sold that pill illegally, one pill of oxycodone, one pill of Adderall, and they sold it illegally in Philadelphia, and that same person got on an airplane and flew to Europe, I could get on that plane and follow them to Europe. That's kind of the jurisdiction that we have. It's an international jurisdiction that's very narrowly tailored. And I want to make sure you understand what the term special agent means. So you'll see, even in my bio, when you see my bio put up against others, it'll say someone from this agency, special agent. And then it'll say Dan Soeffing from DEA, agent. Well, there's no difference. There's no difference between agent, and there's no difference between special agent. So a lot of people may think, oh, you're a special agent, which means you started out as an agent, and then you worked your way up and you became a special agent. No. Special agent is a limiting term. It means you're actually limited. You're special, meaning limited in what you can do. You can only handle certain special things. So when you think of a special agent for the federal government, think of a doctor or a lawyer. It's someone who's specialized. I'm not a general doctor. I'm not an internist. I don't handle everything. I'm a specialist. I'm a special agent. I handle one or two things. I'm very specialized in that regard. So that is basically how it works. That's how DEA works. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has, because I know you don't want to hear me talk for an hour. So go ahead, start your questions. I'll answer any one of them. Any question about anything.
Well, as we're waiting for them to come in, maybe you could just describe some of the work that you've been doing, some of the cases recently, because when you talked about, when I introduced you and said that you're working, you're focusing on medical professionals who are involved in trafficking, or business professionals, you know, that doesn't fit the usual idea of a cartel or a drug dealer. You know, what are you working on?
Okay, so when I started, when I was a state prosecutor, this was 2002, 2004, that time frame, I remember we started seeing a lot of people getting arrested for selling OxyContin, or for having prescriptions for Adderall that they were selling or trading. And I got to be honest, I didn't take it seriously as a prosecutor. I remember handing this back to police officers or federal agents and saying, can you bring me a real drug case? And I say that, and I'm embarrassed about it now. I'm embarrassed about it because I didn't see what was happening. What was happening was I was focusing on the hard street drugs, which would be methamphetamine or cocaine or something like that. And what I didn't realize was, I think a lot of people didn't realize, was that there was something happening to our society where legalized drugs were being abused. In DEA, we call that diversion. So I didn't see that so much as a prosecutor. When I went to Los Angeles, I worked on narco-terrorism cases. And what that meant was there were people who had ties to terrorism agencies all around the world, and they were also selling drugs to promote their terrorism. So I would write wiretaps on them, and then once I got the information from them, I would hand those over to other agencies, and they would pursue those persons. But when I got to Philadelphia, I saw a lot of prescription crimes. Prescriptions meaning pharmacists selling prescriptions, doctors selling prescriptions, people running what you would call a pill ring, where they would bring masses of people to doctors' offices and have them trade and sell prescriptions. So that's a big problem. That's kind of what you might call a domestic cartel. DEA actually labels certain things domestic cartels. So when you have drug dealers, you have, just like mobsters or in organized crime, you have generals, you have lieutenants, you have soldiers on the street. You have the same thing with doctors and pills. And they're all extremely dangerous, and they're difficult to work.
Okay, thank you for that answer. We have a few questions that have come in already. We'll just take it from the top. How did you get your job as a DEA agent? And I'll add to that just real quickly. Why did you decide to leave the prosecutor's office to work for the DEA?
Okay, sure. So I got the job with DEA. I looked at all the federal agencies, and I felt that DEA fit my interests the best. And why did I leave being a prosecutor to be an agent? Because no matter how many trials I had, no matter how successful I was as a prosecutor, at the end of any trial, jury trial or a bench trial, I would never have a victim of a crime turn to me and say, wow, that was awesome. Wow, that was a great result. Wow, that worked out great. I was never able to really get ahead of things. So with DEA, with drug crimes, and especially with DEA, you can actually get out and you can get in front of a crime. And, you know, one of the mottos of DEA is to disrupt and to dismantle and destroy drug organizations. And the funny thing about it is we don't talk too much about the cases we prosecute. We do prosecutions. I've been involved in them, and they have their place. But a lot of what DEA does, especially internationally, is DEA seeks to disrupt drug organizations, disrupt them, dismantle them, and then destroy them. And believe it or not, that's very challenging, but it's also, it's quite enjoyable, and it's very satisfying. It's probably the most satisfying thing in the world. So imagine if you've seen these movies where they have like people go back in time machines and stop crimes from happening. DEA is the only agency anywhere in law enforcement where you can actually stop a crime. Imagine if you could stop a bank robbery. Imagine if you could stop someone from stealing a car, from assaulting someone. With DEA, and I loved this, and this is why I went with DEA, other than I love the personalities, you can actually stop a crime in progress. You can stop a crime as it's happening and bring justice to those involved. So that's why.
Great, thank you. And maybe if we could just have you move your camera, we're losing the top of you a little bit. That's
How's
pretty
that?
good. There you
All
go,
right.
that's good. We have a question from someone who wants to know if the DEA offers internships, and if so, what do you look for in a potential candidate? So even, let's expand that just a tiny bit, internships, but also when you're hiring, because there are some questions to deal with hiring, what are you looking for in a potential candidate?
Okay, so no internships. We used to do the internships. We have a couple interns now, but the bottom line is it just takes too long. So it ties into my last answer. We're disrupting crimes as they're happening. So with us, to do an internship, we have to do a full background check. We have to go through your entire life and then bring you in, because you're actually going to see crimes as they happen and we're investigating them. So by the time we do all that, we might as well have just made you an agent. So we shy away from internships. We have them once in a while, but it's very difficult to get. What do I look for in an agent, or what does DEA look for in an agent? In an agent, I think it's actually very simple, but I'll say it to you today because I have people call me up every day and they want to be DEA agents and they go to great schools. I think Penn State is probably one of the greatest schools I've ever seen. And they go to these great schools. They have great GPAs. They're very well spoken, very smart, but they did marijuana yesterday and they're applying to the DEA, or they're not physically fit. So I'll tell you something, marijuana is federally illegal and it's not good for you. And if you want to be a federal agent in any federal capacity, you shouldn't have done marijuana in the last 3 years. So if you've experimented with marijuana or done marijuana, the first thing you should do right now, if you want to be a federal agent with any agency, is stop doing marijuana. Stop doing drugs that are illegal. Don't take any drugs without a prescription. And then make sure you're physically fit, especially with DEA, because whether or not a drug dealer is the top of a cartel, a street drug dealer, or a lawyer, or a doctor, every drug dealer has something in common. They're doing it for money, and when you go to catch them, they will run. Every drug dealer runs. At the end of the day, no matter who they are, they're going to run, and you have to chase them. You're not going to send anyone else to get them. You're going to get them yourself. At the end of the day, you will get them, and they will run. And whether you're 22 or 42, you have to be in top physical condition to prevent them from running or to chase them down. So be physically fit, stay away from drugs, get good grades. You can be an agent.
Okay. We have a really general question, which is, what does your typical day look like? And I have a feeling you're going to say there's no typical day.
That's what's great about DEA. So another reason I love DEA is the only agency where, imagine this, you as an agent control your day. Every other agency, a supervisor brings you a case, tells you where to go and what to do. With DEA, you control what you do. So with DEA, you can literally be a police officer in the morning, work a case up and be a SWAT team in the afternoon, work that up, and you can be an attorney at night. So you can literally get in a car today as a DEA agent. I could tomorrow go to work, arrest someone for stealing drugs on a probable cause arrest on the street, bring them in, go through the full booking process with them, write an affidavit, make that into a search warrant, get a court order, kick down the door where they bought the drugs, arrest everyone in there, get arrest warrants for them, and then make some of them informants, have one of those informants walk with me and buy drugs from their suppliers. I work in an undercover capacity, and then I could take that and I could take all the information I get and I could start anything I wanted to with an international case and do it anywhere in the world. There's no other agency where you can do that. So with DEA, that could be a typical day, and I can tell you because that's been a typical day for me. It's your case ends when you decide it ends, and you can take it as far as you want it to go.
Okay, great. We have a couple questions about law school, and so I'll combine them. A law degree isn't necessary for the DEA, but how has it helped you in your career?
Right. So a law degree has been extremely helpful to me in my career. And the reason why is because I know the elements of a crime. So when you know the elements of a crime and how to prove a crime, you know what to look for before you start investigating a crime. So the sad thing about a lot of law enforcement is they have all these tools available. They have all these machines and all these hyper technical things they can use and all these teams they can send out. They have helicopters and airplanes, and they can do a wiretap, and they can follow people around. They have surveillance squads, and they can hit doors, and they can put trackers on cars. But they can do all these things, and then they can get all these statements on tape. I can't tell you how many times another federal agent has come to me and said, wow, I can't believe that drug dealer said that on tape. And how many times I've said, great, but that's not illegal. So when you are an attorney, especially when I was a practicing attorney, a practicing prosecutor, I actually had to bring a case. And believe it or not, these crimes have elements that are not that difficult to prove, but you have to get each element. So you can have someone standing there with 20 kilos of cocaine right next to it, and that doesn't mean you're going to win that case. You have to meet the elements of that crime. So as an attorney, I had that ahead of time, and it made my life very much easier as an agent.
Okay, we have a couple questions. I'm going to combine them. Does the DEA hire people directly from college? And related to that, what kind of job experience would be helpful if you're looking for someone who's wants to gain a little bit of experience before they go into the DEA after college?
Right. So for most federal agent jobs, believe it or not, you don't have to have a college degree. No one else will ever tell you that. I will tell you that because it's the truth. You don't actually have to have a college degree. You could get the job with what's called commensurate experience, but that's very difficult to get. So the best thing to have, the best applicant I've seen basically has a college degree, a 4-year degree with a 3.0 or better, little or no drug use, physically fit, motivated, great personality, ready to go. It doesn't really matter what courses you took, but I find the best applicants took courses in computers, finance, English, so you can write, so you can communicate what happened, or even Homeland Security. But if you think you want to go the path of criminal justice 3.0, that's great, but you don't have to have that. But if you get out of college, no recent drug use, physically fit, 3.0, 4-year degree, you could be a DEA agent in 6 months.
But stay in school and don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs, absolutely.
So that's a harder route if you don't have the college degree, as you said.
Right.
So
It's
definitely get that.
difficult.
We have a couple interesting questions about how is the current pandemic affecting your job, but I'm going to add to it because I was wondering this myself the other day. How is it affecting drug dealers? We've got this social distancing, and do you see any changes in the drug markets that are going on because of the illegal drug markets because of the pandemic and the stay-at-home orders and all those kinds of things? So how's it affecting you? And I'll add to it, how's it affecting the drug dealers, maybe the street dealers?
Okay, so but no, that's a great question. So drug dealers do drugs for one reason and one reason only, and that is to make money. And a problem I have with applicants many times is I say, hey, you would make a great DEA agent. And they say, well, I don't want to go out on the street and just kick down doors. You have to be prepared to do that, but you have to broaden your horizon of what a drug dealer is. So drug dealers deal in medicines, they deal in healthcare fraud, they deal in fentanyl coming across the border. So the drug dealers are still dealing drugs, they're dealing drugs more so. And you have to remember, where do drugs come from? Drugs can be made, you can make methamphetamine in your house, you can make any drug you want anywhere, but nowadays drugs are coming in more through the mail. So it's a lot of drugs are coming in more so through the mail, and I think you're seeing a rise of people getting things delivered to their home. That goes the same for drugs. So it's very difficult to intercept drugs through the mail because people don't want to intersect with the commerce. They don't want to break down the economy, but you also want to have a strong enforcement of the drugs. So it is affecting drug enforcement, but the way it's affecting is the drug dealers adapt. And as an agent with DEA, you have to adapt right along with them. You have to be flexible. So a lot of people they go out for DEA, and we have I think our application process is pretty easy, but it's kind of awkward, and I kind of like that because you have to be able to adapt very quickly as an agent with DEA. So we're adapting with them. And we also can't let them know that we're adapting with them because we're going to look at them for a very long time. So by the time we arrest a drug dealer or approach a drug dealer, we've been looking at them for a year or two, usually.
So is the coronavirus making your job more difficult now to do investigations, or are you still basically keeping up with all of your investigations?
No, we can keep up with our investigations. So the interesting thing about the coronavirus for me, and I can speak to that as an Army officer as well, but as a DEA agent, it really hasn't changed much of what I do or how I do it, because and I have this hazardous waste disposal certification. We call it a Clandestine Labs. So when we learn about that in training and we go through that, we're always handling things as if they're extremely dangerous. So when we walk into a drug dealer's house, we don't know if they're cooking meth in that house. We don't know what they're doing. We don't know if they have something going on the side. We're very cautious. So honestly, it hasn't changed much of how we do things. When we're following a drug dealer, we're not right behind a drug dealer. Usually we're up in a plane or we're far away in a car. We're not right next to them. We're kind of at arm's length. So by the time we approach a drug dealer, and we usually approach them in a very safe way, it's not as close quarters as you would think.
Okay. We have a question more about the law, and it's how does probable cause affect your job? Can you investigate anyone suspicious?
Well, I mean, that's a great legal question. How do you define suspicious and how do you define investigate? And a lot of lawyers have a different definition of probable cause. So, there's different types of investigations. You have reasonable articulable suspicion, right? You have probable cause, and it's not really how do you define probable cause? It's probable cause for what? So I can go out as a citizen today and I can walk around wherever I want to walk. If I want to step on the curtilage, if I want to step on somebody's front porch or something like that, or look through a window, that takes a different type of probable cause. If I want to use sophisticated equipment, again, that's different. I might have to get a court order for that. If I want to look at someone's records, healthcare records, depends where I am, depends what the laws are. I have to know that. So as an attorney, that really helps out as well, because there's a lot of people who think, well, I'm a federal agent. These things don't apply to me. Well, especially in states like Pennsylvania, which have very strong constitutions, there's a lot of state laws, and there's also a lot of federal regulations that apply. So when you say, can I investigate anyone? I would say no. If I want to open an official investigation, I basically have to have a reason to do so. And it has to be like a public safety reason, and it has to be worthwhile. And then usually in this day and age, I don't think you're having a very good DEA investigation unless there's a prosecutor involved from the very beginning.
Okay, thank you. We have a student who asked, you mentioned that the personality is something that drew you to the DEA. Could you elaborate on that? What do you mean by personality?
Yeah, so DEA agents, they're just, think about this. You're in college, you probably do a lot of road trips. We're all kind of like isolated right now. Ask yourself this question: who would you want to go on a road trip with? So for me, if you said you could go on a road trip with a DEA agent, or you could go on a road trip with someone else from this agency, or this agency, I'd say a DEA agent. And the reason for that is because of the kind of crime that drugs involve. Drugs are ongoing crimes, and they involve everyone involved in the drug crime. Everyone involved in it has some reason not to tell you the truth. So you have to be a certain kind of personality to be able to deal with that and to be able to exploit the information that you want to acquire without hurting someone's feelings, because you want that person to work with you. So other federal agencies, a bank gets robbed, you go to the bank, everybody wants to cooperate, there's a common goal, let's get the bank robber. Someone gets kidnapped, you want to find the kidnappers, get the person who was kidnapped back, everybody wants to help you. With drugs, nobody even wants to call you, because usually if someone knows about the drugs, they're usually involved in it in some way. So you have to infiltrate different organizations knowing that they have their own ulterior motives as to why they're dealing with you, and you have to work with that. And the kind of personality that involves somebody who believes what they're doing, they're passionate about it, but they also understand that not everyone shares those beliefs and that we all have to work together for a common goal, and that's the disruption of these major drug cartels.
Okay, this is a really deep question. So,
Wow, okay.
what do you think your purpose is in life, and is that purpose the reason why you joined the DEA?
Yeah, this is my purpose in life. So right now, what I'm doing right now is my purpose in life. So when I was a little kid, I used to go, my dad was an attorney. I would go to court with my dad, and I would meet the nicest people. And he was a legal aid attorney. He was basically a defense attorney. And every time I met the nicest people and I learned about their situations that he represented and heard about these situations, it turned out to be substance abuse that caused horrible situations for the most wonderful of people. And I would meet someone one day, on a Monday, who was great. And this is when I was like 9 years old. And then on a Tuesday, I'd meet the same person and they were not great. And I'd ask my dad what the deal was. And it was always substance abuse. So since I was, a little kid, like 7, 8, 9 years old, going to court with my dad, who was a legal aid attorney, to when I was a prosecutor, to when I've been in the military, I'm now 42 years old. And I can tell you, I have yet to see a crime committed anywhere in the world that doesn't have anything to do in the least amount with substance abuse. And to me, it's particularly difficult because substance abuse takes the most wonderful people and it literally changes them. It changes them and it makes them do things that are not good things. And so I thought from an early on in my life, whatever I did, I wanted to help people and get them away from substance abuse, mainly so they didn't get started on that to begin with. So that's my purpose in life. I've been working on it for quite some time, and I enjoy talking about it.
Great answer. I'm going to combine a couple questions. One person's asking, are you working multiple cases at a time? And then I'll add to that, are they often undercover? Do you have to do undercover? Or is that really an option for some people? Some people are good at it, some people are bad. How often do you do undercover?
All right, so I've been the recruiter, full disclosure, recruiter for 2 or 3 years now. Haven't actually worked a case in 2 years. But I can tell you, when I was working cases, yes, with DEA, you will do undercover. You have to do undercover, and it's part of your job. And if you say some people aren't good at doing undercover, it's just you have to be in the right atmosphere. So everybody can be a good undercover. There's no such thing as a bad undercover. You just have to put them in the right situation. So for DEA, it's mandatory. If you're a DEA agent, you will do undercover, but it will be safe and it will be controlled, and they'll put you in the right place. So I'm not going to go do undercover, where I'm buying a certain drug in a certain place. It's not going to work. However, I could do undercover where I could go to Kensington and Philadelphia today, and I could buy pills or heroin today, looking just like I am now. I could probably do it wearing this shirt with the DEA badge on it, and no one would care. So, and I've done undercover like that. I could also be an undercover money launderer. I could be an undercover doctor. I could be an undercover patient, a pill seeker. I've done that as well. So you have to do those things. You have to be ready to do them. Every day you go to work, you have to be ready. And what's great about DEA is when you graduate from the DEA Academy, you're ready to do a search warrant. You're ready to break down a door. You're ready to be an undercover agent. You're ready to do surveillance. You're ready to write a wiretap. You're ready to go around the world, whatever it takes. Other agencies, you graduate, and then if you want to be an undercover, you'll go to undercover school. If you want to be a surveillance agent, you'll go to a surveillance squad school. You go to I once went to a breacher school where you learned how to hit a door right to make a door fall down. You learn that in the DEA Academy. So when you get out of the DEA Academy, you're a full-fledged agent. You're ready to go. You can go take more training later, and I've done that, but we're ready to go. So if you don't want to do undercover work, you should not be a DEA agent. That's not in the cards for you.
And are you typically handling multiple cases as an agent, or are you just working on one?
You are. So the way I like to do it, and this is, I think, the best way is 3 cases, and not everybody does it this way, but the way I learned to do it is 3 cases for a group. So I learned how to do the job in Los Angeles. And the way they did in Los Angeles, they called it the Southwest Border Method. You had a group of 10 agents and police officers. And there was one case on deck being prepped, being ready, one case being fully worked, and one case going to trial, or where they're cleaning up the case in some way. They're bringing it down. The case that's being fully worked, that case has one agent handling the informant, one agent handling the surveillance, one agent handling this, one agent writing affidavits, one agent doing other things. That's how they did it in Los Angeles. In Philadelphia, it's more, you could have 5 to 10, any agent could have 5 to 10 cases. I've gone ahead and arrested you can arrest people just for selling pills on the street, and that might be a quick case. You go out there, there's many complaints, the local police want your help or something, you go out, you do surveillance 1, 2, 3 days, take pictures of them selling pills, you walk up there yourself, you buy some pills yourself, you come back the next day and you arrest the person. So it can be as quick as that. It depends on what it needs, but the way I like to do it is the Southwest Border way that was done in Los Angeles. Maybe that's because the way I initially did it, but most agents, I would say, to have 5 to 10 cases, and one of those cases is a really big case that's going on for years and years.
Okay, great. I'm going to combine these couple questions. What's your biggest accomplishment, and what are some of the biggest hurdles that you face and challenges you face as a DEA agent?
My biggest accomplishment is my family. That's for sure. Great wife, 4 beautiful boys. That is 100% my family. That's my greatest accomplishment, and it's not my accomplishment. It's a family accomplishment. So that's number one. But
and professionally?
Professionally, I have a couple, but they're all team efforts. So the thing about a DEA agent is that the greatest accomplishments will never be on the front page of the paper. Because like I was kind of saying earlier, today's defendant is tomorrow's informant. So if you're ever reading the paper and it says, oh, we brought down this big drug lord and this, that, the other thing, well, that's great. But the fact that he's in the newspaper means that they can't exploit his information. And time again, I get letters from prisons, and I don't even open the letters anymore because they'll be delivered to me, and the person will say, aren't you going to open that letter? And I'll be like, I know what it says. It's someone I arrested years ago. I approached them. I asked them to work with me. They wouldn't work with me. They went to jail, and now they want to work with me, but it's too late because they're in jail. So I have probably 3 or 4 major accomplishments that I'm very proud of, but I can say that they were all team efforts, and any agent from any agency who says I did this or I did that, it's a team effort. It's like a baseball game or a football game. It's a total team effort. There's no way to make a case like this. And the biggest hurdles are the egos, because people, especially in narcotics, everyone has an ego, and you have to work with it every day, including myself. You got to keep your own ego in check, and you got to work with the people and their egos and get what you need done.
Okay, we have a few questions about the nature of the job, specifically, and I'm going to combine a few of these. What kind of benefits do you receive with the DEA? Is there forced retirement? And how is your job location determined? Do you have much choice in that?
Okay, the benefits are the best, but you wouldn't, I'm shocked at how great the benefits are. We make very, very good money. We work really hard, but we make great money. We get great federal government health care. We get a 20-year pension. So you could come on this job at, say, 25 years old, work until you're 50, have a 25 years on the job, and retire at 50 with a full pension, healthcare benefits, and that pension starts that day. You get a government car. It's only used for work purposes, but still that's a car that you get to use. You don't have to use your personal car for all this business. And I can't believe how well compensated we are and how easy it is for people to work with us. The way it worked for me is basically you have to be ready to go anywhere in the United States. The better agent you are, the more opportunities will come up. I got sent to Los Angeles. I worked there for a couple of years, was able to get back to the East Coast. I'm originally from Maryland, but got back to the East Coast to Philadelphia, loved it here. And then if I so chose, I could probably go work anywhere in the world. I could work in Europe or South America. DEA will train you, teach you the language, send you anywhere you want to go if you show the potential. So if you're a hard worker, you got it made.
And where's the best place to go if someone is interested in the DEA? To the website? Does it list all the physical requirements? Because there were some questions about the physical requirements, about the minimum GPA, if 3.0 is mandatory, all of those things. Are those listed at the website, the DEA website?
Yes, everything's listed on the DEA website. It's all under special agent recruiting. And some of it you have to find, some of it can be a little difficult to find. I don't have a problem with that because you're looking to be a criminal investigator. So if you want to be a criminal investigator, you should be able to navigate the DEA website. So when you get on the website, it's not going to pop out at you. You gotta really look at it, and you should go through the entire website. But it's all on there. And basically what I basically tell people is no recent drug use, 3.0, 4-year degree, good physical condition, willing to go anywhere, willing to carry a firearm, you're good.
I have to follow up real quickly. I had a student one time approach me and said, I'm having trouble finding the FBI's website online. Can you tell me how to find it?
Yeah.
And I wanted to stop and say, you want to join the Federal Bureau of Investigation and you can't you can't Google FBI? Yep, so I tried as nicely as I could to suggest maybe he needed to look for another profession somewhere.
There you go.
So we have a few people asking about the DEA Academy. Can you talk about what that's like?
Sure. It is not fun. It is the most unfun thing you will ever engage in your entire life. So it is a paramilitary academy. It's in Quantico, Virginia. So look at it this way. It's in Quantico, in the middle of a Marine base, and then it's inside basically the FBI Academy. So you have the FBI Academy, and then down the hill a little bit, you have the DEA Academy with some shared facilities. And it's 16 weeks, and you're getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. You're running 5 miles at least. Then you're going to the firing range. Then you're coming back and you're doing defensive tactics. Then you're going to get in a car and do surveillance. Then you're going to go debrief, an informant, an instructor. And then you're going to, do some law classes. And you're going to be up until 7 o'clock at night, at least. It is physically intensive. It's a lot of shooting. It's a lot of running around. And it's a lot of egos. And you're not, imagine the worst Army drill instructor movie you ever saw. It's like that. And it's like that for a reason. So you got to be ready for it.
Following up, somebody had asked, I'm taking this a little bit out of order with the other questions, but it fits in with what you just said about movies. What's the most realistic movie about the DEA or drug enforcement that you've seen?
Yeah, there's no movies. Television and movies are absolutely not realistic about being a lawyer, about being in the military, and about DEA or law enforcement in any way whatsoever. And the more I watch television or the news or movies, they're not realistic. There's no good movie out there to describe the experience. They're just, and I'm amazed at the simple things they even get wrong. So you have to come do it for yourself. The good news is it's much more rewarding and much more exciting, and it's way better than what's portrayed in movies.
Someone also asked that, do you still find the job exciting?
Yes, every day. You make it your own. So you can go someplace and have an exciting, great career that's fulfilling, or you can go to the greatest place in the world and find not so much. So it's really up to you, but I find it exciting.
Okay. A few people have asked about preparation for the career. Generally, what is some of the best preparation? I mean, you've kind of answered this already. Yep. And then how much do you think a military background improves your chances of working for the FBI or working for the DEA?
Yeah, I don't think you don't have to have the military background. I think if you're a team player, if you've done sports, or if you've just worked on some sort of a team, if you're willing to give something to a team or other people, you'll be ready to go. So again, like I think I said, check the ego. If you can just check your ego, you'll be fine. You'll go anywhere in life you want to go if you can check your ego.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about, we have a few questions dealing with the international aspects of the job. Can you talk a little bit about whether you have to travel out of the country? Should you have is it beneficial to have a second or third language? And how, for the international authority, the DEA, does it I mean, how do you work with other law enforcement from other countries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Okay. Okay. You don't have to travel outside the United States. I would think you would want to travel outside the United States. I've done it on numerous occasions because you have to be ready for the next step of your case. So you may want to debrief an informant in another country. You may want to take evidence to another country. You may want to meet with agents in another country, or you may want to just go for 3 to 6 years and actually work in another country. And the great thing about working with DEA is every other country in the world, you can name any one of them, they want us in their country because no one wants the drug problem. And many countries will say they don't have a drug problem or their drug problem is very small. That's not true. Everyone has a major drug problem in their country and no one wants to have that. And everyone's willing to try new and unique things to stop a drug problem. So DEA is welcomed with open arms everywhere around the world, and you get to meet people of all backgrounds. And it is great to if you have a language, that's another great thing, and I should have mentioned that. Any language whatsoever is welcome because that can increase your going anywhere. But if you don't have a language, we'll teach. If you went for DEA, did a great job for 5 years, and you said, hey, I want to go to Brazil or I want to go here, they would teach you the language and send you.
And talking about law enforcement in the United States, how often do you work with local law enforcement, state law enforcement, and even other federal agencies? And will those other agencies give you leads? Will they call you in on some investigations?
Yes, we work with every federal law enforcement agency. DEA was kind of created to be the central drug agency, but what's happened over years is now we just happen to be a drug agency. Basically every federal agency does drug work, and we work with the locals, the state police very well. I don't think anyone works with them better because again, we get calls in the middle of the night. It's very reactionary and we have to be ready to go. So DEA works with everybody all the time, and I think we work with them very, very well.
A couple people have asked how your job has affected your family, your family life. The long hours, maybe the travel, those kinds of things.
They love the job. They're 4 kids, all very supportive. Love the job. I think it's like any job. Like I said, I went to court with my dad when I was a kid. My dad, he brought me to court because I was like, "Where are you? What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, I'll show you." And some people would say that wasn't a smart move because I saw some very unpleasant things at a very young age. But I think I learned a lot from it. And it was presented in a way. He talked to me about it. He gave me techniques and skills that I use to this day, and it's kept me safe. He did certain things 30 years ago that people are just now starting to do today. So very smart man. And I think that if you're really, even with DEA, I can bring my kids into my office, show them around, show them what we're doing, show them why we're doing it, and show them people who are getting hurt and why. I think it's like anything you do. If you explain to someone why you're doing something, I think that they'll buy into it.
We have a question that was asked really early and I haven't gotten to it, so I'm going to ask. It's very specific, so it can probably be a quick answer. How long did you practice law before you joined the DEA?
Okay, that's a trick question. So I graduated law school in 2001, December 2001. I was a law clerk for a year, and I was a state prosecutor, a county prosecutor for 2 years exactly. Went into the DEA, and then I became an Army JAG. So I still practice law to this day. I was practicing law 5 minutes ago, well, right before I got on this call. So, I haven't been in an actual courtroom in 15 years, but I've done administrative hearings with the Army. I've given legal advice with the Army. So I practice law every day. Sometimes I go all around the world and practice law. So I still utilize it. So, but officially, I guess 2 years.
Great. We had someone who asked, what are the growth opportunities available at the DEA? And I should probably take one step back and say also, is the DEA hiring? And then once you are hired by the DEA, I'm assuming when they're saying the growth opportunities, what are the different ways that you can take your career within the DEA?
The DEA is currently hiring. We're hiring special agents, intelligence analysts, investigators who handle more of the pills and the doctors and things of that nature. And we also have various other personnel, chemists. But to me, it's mainly special agents, and you can do anything with that you choose. You could go around the world advising on homeland security issues. There's no such thing as terrorism that doesn't involve drugs. Terrorism issues, healthcare fraud, and what I really want to hit on is I said in the beginning, we're a regulatory agency. So the more drugs that are legalized, the more government programs that come out, the more you're going to have to deal with that in terms of regulations. And then you can also help other countries set up their regulations, because there's a lot of agencies that other countries set up that mirror what the DEA has done to kind of learn what works and what also doesn't work, so they can learn from us.
Okay. We have someone who asked whether you're specifically looking for people from the healthcare and pharmaceutical industry.
Yes. So if you have a healthcare and a pharmaceutical background and you want to kick down doors and be an agent, that would be awesome. We absolutely need that. If you have that background, but you just want to do more of just investigations and you don't want to do the surveillance and you don't want to do the street work, we have what's called diversion investigators. And these are diversion investigators or intelligence analysts or agents all around the world, and all a significant role. But for a healthcare background, very, very, very needed.
Okay. We have the kind of politically charged question. What's your stance on medical marijuana and legalization of recreational marijuana? Do you think it's going to happen in the U.S.? The legalization of recreational marijuana specifically.
Sure. So my stance is I go to the professionals, and so I belong to four medical journals. So there's 4 medical journals which I think are, I'm not going to say the most prestigious, but there's the New England Journal of Medicine. England has a medical journal. There's JAMA. There's called the Lancet. And they've been around for about 200 years, these medical journals. So don't look, I'm an Army lawyer and a DEA guy. So don't take it from me. What you should do is what I do. I just go to these every so often, every week or so. I go onto these 4 medical journals and I just look at medical marijuana or marijuana, and I see what the studies are and what the professionals are saying. And the answer to that question from them is it's not good. So I wouldn't take it from me. I would take it from the medical professionals. I see many things in many charts that say how marijuana damages your lungs, how it's not good for you, how it makes you more excitable, hurts your memory, does all these things to you, and the medical benefits are zero. With that said, met a lot of people who say they've tried it and it helps them. So, but for me, I go to the medical journals, and I would ask you to do the same.
Okay. Does the DEA, this question came in a little while ago, but does the DEA do any kind of assistance for victims of substance abuse, or is it involved in that at all, or is that another federal agency that's handling treatment and other kinds of assistance?
We do. So we have victim coordinators who handle that, and we do that as part of court work. I think the main way we do that is I think I said earlier, everyone involved in drugs has some reason or another why they're involved. So many times when you have an informant, or when you have someone who's giving you information, whether they're an informant or just a source or something, they have an involvement, and it usually involves using the drug in some way. So they're going to have a dependency issue. So you don't just go and, it's not like the movies, like we were talking about earlier, or TV, where you meet an informant, you pay the informant gives you information, you use the information. No, you develop a personal relationship with a human being, and you help that person the best way you can. And a lot of times that help is you make a personal investment in getting that person actual physical and mental help, so they can help you and help themselves and help their families, and you actually develop a relationship with that person to see them do better. So that's when I've kind of gotten people help.
Okay. We have someone who asked if you could talk a little bit more about the diversion investigators and what they do.
Okay. So the diversion investigators are very, very highly skilled. So if you go on the DEA website and you look at the special agent test, it basically, there's a sample questions for being a DEA special agent. It's like 2 + 2 is 4. So imagine like the sample questions for the diversion investigator is like the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, it's very difficult. So you have to get on there, and they have to regulate doctors, pharmacists, and medical professionals. So, and I'm trying to put this in very, very simple terms. So a DEA agent will go out and they'll say, okay, there's a guy selling cocaine. Cocaine is total contraband. It is actually illegal in some circumstances, but it's illegal. And I'm going to arrest that person because they just sold me cocaine right in front of 100 people. A diversion investigator has to go into a pharmacy with a big book of regulations and say, this drug is not appropriately locked up in the way it should be, or these prescriptions aren't dated in the way they should be dated. It's very hyper technical. And if you look at the problems we've had recently in this country and countries around the world, a lot of them involve drugs which start out legally. And that's the diversion investigator's job, to say, why would this doctor prescribe this? Why would the pharmacist allow it to be prescribed? And how can I investigate this and stop it from happening in the future?
Are you doing any investigations with counterfeit drugs that are sold online?
Yeah. So you could go on, everybody talks about the dark web or this kind of, you don't even have to go on the dark web. You could go online right now, and probably the same guy has 20 websites where they'll sell you anything you want, and you're probably just going to lose your money. But another problem is people will actually order drugs. They think they're getting one drug, and it'll be shipped in. And when they get it, they're actually getting another drug. So when you think about going to the doctor, whether it's telemedicine or whatever you're doing, you get your weight checked, you get blood pressure checked. The doctor wants to know all about you, because the doctor wants to make sure that you're not getting the wrong drug, which could majorly mess up your system or even, bring death upon you. When people order these drugs online, not only are they getting a drug that they should go through a doctor for, but they might not even be getting that drug. And they're getting synthetic drugs, which they're not ready for. And those drugs are hurting them, and we have to intercept those. And sometimes we just call the people. We literally call people or knock on their door, and we say, you just ordered this from this country. We don't know what it is, and you're going to hurt yourself, and we're actually here to just take it from you. We're not even going to arrest you.
You're covering a lot of substances in the DEA. You're
A lot
responsible for a lot.
Yeah.
We have 3 questions left, unless somebody asked another one, and they've been good questions so far. So we have another one about TV shows, and someone was asking specifically about Narcos and Narcos Mexico.
Yeah.
Are those fairly realistic?
No. So I've met. They're very nice, and I've met one of the agents who was on Narcos. Narcos is not how it's done. Narcos does not represent me, and Narcos does not represent the DEA. And any DEA agent who tells you differently is not doing a good representation. That's a television program. Now, I wasn't doing drug law enforcement in 1970 in Colombia, but I can tell you that the way drug law enforcement should be done, if you want to watch the way it should be done, I don't like talking about TV or movies, but think about Elliot Ness, or think about The Untouchables. Think about doing the right thing for the right reason. Think about not taking the law into your own hands. So when I grew up, one of the guys I liked was Elliot Ness, and he was with the Bureau of Prohibition. And he had a lot of issues, didn't always do things right, but he said, it's not my job to make the law, it's my job to enforce the law. And when I enforce the law, I'm going to do it the right way, dotting every I, crossing every T, and following it through. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to break down the law to get the bad guy, because if you do that, you have nothing left. So no, Narcos is not realistic, and I don't endorse it. And I would say that to the fine gentleman who made and write the show, if I saw them.
There's a lot of, I did research in organized crime for my dissertation, and so everybody thinks it's all, excitement, and it can be for you guys, but I know it's a lot of paperwork, it's following, it's a lot of sitting behind a desk and a computer now and trying to trace and connect people and do all kinds of things like that. So that's hard to present in a television show, and they don't often like to do that, to show somebody sitting at a computer and doing all kinds of following the money.
Right,
Which
sure.
and so, I mean, that's the part that people don't like to watch, but I guess it doesn't get ratings. So once we market this particular Zoom talk, then we'll have a realistic show on television.
There you go.
Put it on Netflix. There's a specific question, so I'm just going to read it. It's apparently, I'm thinking it's maybe from someone maybe who was in the military. Are the medical disqualifications of the military comparable to the disqualifications for federal agencies? Do you need to get medical waivers for certain conditions?
No, no. So specifically with DEA, you can get they have some disqualifiers and you can get a waiver, but mainly what I've seen is, can you pass the physical standards? So we have many people with DEA who might be precluded from other agencies or from the military, but if you can meet the standards, I don't see any issues. But you will go through a medical board, and they may say this or that. So there's no guarantees, but it's not the same.
Okay. Do you intend on pursuing another career or job after you retire from the DEA?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think I'll stay with DEA as long as I can. I think someone asked what the retire. I never answered. The retirement's about 57 years old. So I hope to do this as long as I can. I really enjoy it.
We have one last question, so I've gone through most of them. It's a repeat of the earlier one, but maybe you can. I'm trying to think of a different way to maybe phrase it, but it's another question about how is you're obviously committed to the job. How has that affected your personal or family life? And so you've kind of answered, and you said your family backs you, but I guess if we can open it up a little bit more, do you see it affecting other agents, and why? How is it different for them, other agents that maybe it has affected in a negative way? What would you offer as advice to someone who's coming into the DEA, to this job that requires a lot of commitment? How would you recommend that they balance family life and the career?
Well, like anything, I would say, believe in what you're doing, be passionate about what you do, love what you do, and then people who agree with you on such things will understand what you're doing. And like what my dad did with me when I was a little kid was, show them what you're doing and show them why you think it's important. So I think if you just take a little bit of time, and you can do that in many ways. There's many prosecutors who don't want to take drug cases, but sometimes if you sit them down and you say, look, you might think it's just this, but look at the impact it's having on the community, you can get the buy-in. So it's the same thing with the family. If you sit down and you say, this is why I'm doing this, this is why I believe in this, there's 360 million people in America. If we don't have to agree on something, but if people see that you truly care about what you're doing and you believe in what you're doing, they will back you. It's all, to me, it's more about motives.
Okay, and we've had 3 more questions come in while you talk.
Okay.
So great. I'm just going to kind of follow up the last one that came in, because it kind of fits in with what you were just talking about. How does the DEA work with women and maternity leave?
Well, you can be on, you get maternity leave. I think there's now a new federal act where any parent can get, I think, 12 weeks of leave, and I think that's October 1st. But yeah, you get maternity leave, or I think there's now a Parental Leave Act which comes into play October 1st. So you get, like, you have your vacation time, you have sick leave, and then I think if you're a parent and you adopt or have a child, I think you're now going to get 12 weeks as of October 1st as a federal employee, paid.
And when you move, does the DEA help you, assist you with that move? And if you live, take an international post, does the DEA offer any kind of special benefits for that?
Yes, you're like an ambassador. They literally move you. They pay for your move. They pay for the closing costs on your home. They pay to transfer your car. And then they, if you have children, they pay for your children to go to school. So if you go to Paris, your children are going to school with, like, the ambassador's children in some American school in Paris, free.
Not bad.
Not bad.
Not bad. Um, Specific question, are there field offices that are more active than others, significantly more drug activity?
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the office and it depends on the drug. You know, Philadelphia has a certain kind of drug problem. Los Angeles had a certain kind of drug problem. Some offices reach overseas a lot. So it depends on how they're active and what they wanna do.
I'll handle these two together because I think we have them almost all answered. There's one that I'll save for the end. Do you have much say in relocation? And another one that's not really connected, but does the DEA offer loan forgiveness?
No loan forgiveness, but we do have a lot of say in where we're going. So the better agent you are, the more say you're gonna have in where you want to go.
Okay, and the last question for tonight, which is a good one to end on. If you could go back in time and become an agent again, would you do anything differently?
I would slow down, take my time, and enjoy it more.
Great. I think it's been a fantastic time. This went by quickly, so I wish we could have slowed it down a little bit more.
All right. Okay.
Thank you so much
Thank you.
For joining us. You gave very thorough answers. You answered lots of questions. I think we have had 49 questions. We didn't quite hit 50, but that's been our most active questioning. And so you did a fantastic job. And of course, you're always welcome at Penn State. For people who are still have a couple more years left at Penn State, Dan has always been very gracious in giving his time, and he's visited Penn State before, and we were hoping to have him come into my classes this semester, but the world kind of changed that for us. So certainly look for him in the future on campus, and if you have any questions that we didn't answer, please send them to me, and I will be happy to pass them along. My email is hb as in boy s103@psu.edu. So that's hbs103. Send me the questions and I'll be happy to pass them along to Dan. So thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Stay well, be happy, and hope to talk to you soon.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay.